Hey guys, another video for our Buying a House in Japan playlist. So what's triggered this video is there seems to be an increase in the clickbait posts on the internet that you can buy a house in Japan for $30,000, which is true. But like most clickbait, they just give you the bit of the information that gets them the click, and they don't give you the rest of the information because they're not about giving you the whole story, they're about getting the click. So they just give you that little bit of information, they don't give you the rest. So the purpose of this video is to give you the rest. So if you haven't seen our Buying a House in Japan playlist yet, and you're interested in buying a house in Japan, check out the playlist because there is 16 years of information about buying a house in Japan, lots of videos on the topic. This video will just give you a bit of an overview to give you a bit more of the whole story. So the first thing is, people are often surprised that you can buy a house in Japan even if you're not a Japanese citizen or a permanent resident. That's true. At the moment, I would not be surprised if this new government changes that rule because they're toughening up everything to do with foreigners. So that might change in the future, but at the moment, yeah, you can turn up in Japan and buy a house. So what's the real cost? So in this case, we'll use US dollars because it seems to be easier for people to convert into whatever currency they use in their country. But rather than millions of yen, always gets a bit confusing. And thousands of man yen is even more confusing. So we'll do it US dollars, and we'll just do a $50,000 house, 50,000 US house. If you come to Japan, buy a $50,000 US house. $50,000 for the house, and then $2,000 for a judicial scrivener, so the person that comes along to the sale and stamps some stuff. $2,000 for that person. Brokerage fee is 3% of the 50,000 plus $400 plus times 1.1% because you got to pay 10% tax. So that's about $2,000 too. And then the surveying fee, you've got to have the place surveyed before you can settle on it. That costs $2,000 as well. So that's $6,000. That's $56,000. So $50,000 for the house, $6,000 in fees. Then you've bought it. When we bought this one, those of you who followed those videos, I did a fair bit of renovation. Nothing seriously structural, but still spent $20,000 on just on materials to do this house. So that was just sort of like a bit of a renovation of the kitchen and then just painting and repairs and just all the other stuff. A new floor, had to replace one of the floors that was tatami, replace it with wood. And those of you who saw those videos know what I did. I did it myself, and I did it before work and after work every day for a year. That's how much work went into it, and $20,000 in materials and truck rentals and all, $20,000. Used a little bit of outside labour, used electrician a little bit because I had to legally, and gas fitters and a few things like that. But total was about $20,000. So, you know, one of these old houses in the countryside that you buy is going to be about that. And then the ongoing costs. Your land tax is going to be minimum now. We're out in the countryside out here. We pay about $1,000 a year because we're out in the countryside. If you're out in the countryside, and particularly if you're in a rural area, a farming area, the land tax is a bit cheaper than it is in town. But you're going to be a minimum of $1,000 a year. If you're in one of the big cities, who knows? Multiples of that, I would imagine, if you're in one of the big cities. But minimum of $1,000 a year. Electricity, $100 a month. Now, one of the things about these old places is they're very hard to cool in summer and they're very hard to warm in winter because they're just big and they leak air. And so we spend about $100 a month in electricity at this time of year. However, in winter, we spend about $400 a month. Did I say $100 a month? $100 a month this time of year, but in winter, about $400 a month because we have to use the kerosene heaters as well as the air conditioners just to get the temperature to 18 degrees. So, you know, when it's really cold outside, when it's minus outside, when it's below freezing outside, you know, we need the kerosene heaters. So we spend about $400 a month in winter warming the old house. Water charges are about $500 a year. Most of these old houses have septic tanks. You've got to pay a couple $100 a year to get them emptied. And then the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance is constant. There's always something breaking. I was changing taps this morning. There's always something in these old houses. You know, somebody remember we had a huge water leak at one stage that was very expensive. That was costing about $400 a month just in water because we had a water leak. So until I found that and fixed it, which I did myself, you know, a plumber would have cost thousands for that. That was a huge job. And then keep in mind, all that money that you spend renovating and doing all the things that you do to it, at the end, the house will still only be worth what it was worth when you bought it, because Japanese people don't want the old house. So you're still valuing it at the end the same way that you valued it at the beginning. It's the value of the land minus the cost of demolishing the house. So that's how most of these old places are valued. So when you see that place that's advertised for $50,000, the land is probably worth $70,000. So in the case of this place, when we bought it, we paid. Now all these conversions are using the current. The yen's really weak at the moment, right? Which means these dollar values are actually lower than they would be usually. So when the yen is stronger, obviously everything I've just said to you would be more expensive. This is the cheapest it will ever be, because at the moment the yen's the weakest it's ever been. So those costs are the minimum costs. So when we bought this house, we paid about $120,000 and then $20,000 for the renovation. But just stick to the $120,000 for a minute. Probably it was, they probably valued the land at $140,000, and then because of these buildings, they've said it's going to cost $20,000 to remove the buildings, so that makes it $120,000. You with me? The land's worth $140,000. It costs $20,000 to remove all the buildings. That means that they sell the place for $120,000, because their thinking is nobody wants the old buildings. Right? Which means that's great for you when you buy one of these old places, but when you sell it, you're in the same boat again. Which means you buy this place for 50, and then you spend another 10 on it, so that you spent 60, and then you come to sell it, it's still only worth 50, because as far as they're concerned, it's still going to cost the same amount, $10,000 to remove the old house, because the Japanese people don't want the old house usually, you see. So, and that's if you can sell it. The other worry that I would have is the reason that it was probably so cheap and that you could buy it so cheap is nobody wanted it. And I've seen that before in this town. We paid $120 for this one, but I saw two houses here once. I mean, it was 20 years ago, but there was two houses here once that were $10,000. That the owner just wanted the amount that he owed in tax, in land tax. So it was $10,000 for two. I saw another one where there was an old house with a new extension that was really nice that was built on. It was $20,000. The reason those two were so cheap is there was no car access. Both of them were up little walking laneways, and nobody would have wanted them. Japanese people wouldn't have wanted them, which would have meant that if we'd bought those, they would have been really cheap, but when you couldn't resell it, nobody would want it because they couldn't get their car to it. And they're not interested in old houses, and so they'd be thinking, well, I buy this from you, and then I knock it down and build a new house, and I don't have car. They wouldn't have been interested. And I think most of these that you see on the internet that are $30,000 or $40,000, there's a reason that they're that cheap. Is that they're out in the countryside somewhere where nobody wants them. Rural land that's actually zoned for farming is pretty cheap, is very cheap, and so. You know, the only person who's going to be interested in that when you come to resell it might be the farmer next door maybe, and if he's not interested, you know, the chances of getting your money back might be limited. I know someone that's bought a place in this town that was he paid $50,000 for it, foreigner, and he paid $50,000 for it, and it's up just that same story. It's up a little laneway, and I just can't see him reselling it. I just can't see any Japanese person wanting it. They can't get a car in there. They could get a small K truck in there and that'd be it. And I just can't see, I can't even see how they'd tear it down and rebuild it because they can't get machinery in there. So I just don't think he could resell it, which, you know, if he's going to live there forever, that's okay. But if he decides he wants to sell it and leave, you know. So, and so it might be really difficult for you to sell it when you decide that you want to go home or, you know, you want to move somewhere else. And you've got to pay tax on it until you do sell it, and you know that could be $1,000, $2,000 a year, until you sell it, and if you don't pay the tax, the city will just take it off you, and then you'll get nothing for your $60,000, right? So it is a gamble. It is a gamble. Yeah. So and if you do sell it, the selling costs are the same as the buying costs. So if you buy it for 50, spend and then spend 6 on your cost, that's 56, and then spend 10 renovating it, or 14, say, we'll take it up to 70 just for a nice even number. When you sell it, you've got to pay 6. You've got to pay those same costs to the brokerage and the scrivener and the survey fee. Oh, don't pay the survey fee, that's true. So it'd be 4,000 to sell it. Although they do have another strange thing that they make you pay for sometimes, is this drilling thing that they do, where you've got to pay for someone to come and drill holes in it and show what's under the ground. So the owner of this place had to do that. That's a strange one. So to show you what's under the ground, if it's soft or if it's rock or whatever it is, and the owner, when they sell, has to pay for that, which is a strange one. That is a couple of $1,000. So we're back to 6 again. So I saw a story recently. One of the things that triggered this video, there was one of those clickbaiters on the internet was doing a story about, here's a couple who bought a house in Japan on their first visit to Japan. And it sort of made me cringe, because over the years I've heard lots of people say, I want to move to Japan. And then someone will say to them, how many times have you been there? Oh, I've never been there. And it's quite common for people to say that, I want to move to Japan, and they've never actually been here before. And when I've had people say that to me before, I've always said to them, come spend some time here first. Come spend a year here first, because the statistics are that of the people that come to Japan on a 1-year visa with the intention of staying for a year, there's a high percentage of them that go home after 6 months. Because coming here for a holiday for a couple of weeks or a month or something is fabulous, but living here is also fabulous, but it's a totally different experience. And what often happens is people come here with the intention of staying for a year, and then after 6 months of working for a Japanese boss and paying the rent and living next door to neighbours that complain about how they deal with their rubbish and all the day-to-day stuff about living in Japan, it becomes too much for them and they leave. And so when I heard this story about these people that had come to Japan for the first time and bought a house, it was like, oh no. Because statistically, they're not going to be here long term. Statistically, they're going to get to a point where they get frustrated because they can't earn enough money, which is a common thing. All the difficult things. Look, living in Japan is fabulous. We've posted thousands of videos already over the last 16 years about how fabulous it is to live in Japan. But we've also posted videos showing the reality of living in Japan, which for some people is very, very difficult. So statistically, most people that come to Japan will go home in a short period of time. And statistically, very, very few people stay long term. Out of the number of people that come here, there's very, very few that stay long term, which means putting $60,000 into a house here that you might not be able to sell later is a bit of a gamble. So in our case, we're pretty confident because it's in a good position. It doesn't have any of those negative things that I talked about, like access or too isolated or anything like that. We're not far from a train station, which is a big thing for Japanese people, and it's a good sized piece of land. So even if we only sell it for what we paid for it at the end, which we should be able to do fairly easily because it is a big piece of land. Some of you remember the old house next door to us was sold for about $200,000 a couple of years ago, and then they divided it up into 4 and put four new houses on it, which is what they do here. This house that we've taken so much care of for the last 15 years, if we sell this, when we sell it eventually, they'll just demolish it. All those trees that we planted and all these buildings that we've renovated, they'll just remove all of it and it'll be one big flat area, and they'll divide it up. They can get 5 blocks out of this. So they'll divide it up into 4 or 5 blocks and build new houses on it. So for that reason, we're reasonably confident because of where it is. The location's really good. So because of that, we're pretty confident that if we decided to sell it, we could. But it could take a long time. It's only going to be a developer or someone like that that's going to buy it. Nobody else is interested. No one's going to want to live in this. They're just not interested in living in old houses, So So that's the reality, you know. It could go really well for you. It's a math, isn't it? It's like our friend here that's bought his $50,000 house. I don't reckon he's going to be able to sell that house, but he's lived in it for 10 years or so, which means, you know, when you do all that math, it's sort of cheaper than renting an apartment or something, probably. So at the end, I don't know how he's going to get rid of it. This is going to be the problem. He's responsible for the tax on that every year. And if he can't sell it, he's going to remain responsible for the tax every year, unless he just forfeits it and lets the city take it, which is possible. But that's not going to be good on his record, is it, on his history? Unpaid taxes is not a good situation that you want to be in if you want to spend any time in Japan. You know, they've made new laws about that recently, new policies about foreigners in Japan paying their taxes. You don't pay your taxes, you're not going to stay here. So I would recommend thinking long and hard about buying a $50,000 house in Japan. Have a very close look at where it is, and be sure that you're going to be here. Someone turning up and doing it soon, I would really recommend against doing that. It's, you know, you really need to be sure that you're going to spend a really long time here first before committing to something like that, because, you know, most it's statistics. It's statistics. Most people who come from another country and live in Japan don't last long term, because for all sorts of reasons they want to go back to their own country. So until you're absolutely confident you're going to be here long term, really long term, it's a big gamble. It's a big gamble. So anyway, hopefully that information helps somebody. A little bit more than a bit of clickbait about buy a house in Japan. Anyway, that was that. If you haven't checked out the Buying a House in Japan playlist yet, check that out. That's got all the things. It'll show you how we renovated this house, and a lot of videos on there about renovating this house, and a lot of other things about buying a house as well. Even before that, there's videos where we're looking to buy a house. And fortunately, I think we made a good decision here, because some of the ones that we looked at while we were looking, I drive past now and again and think, boy, lucky we didn't buy that one, for different reasons, you know. So anyway, hopefully that helps somebody. Like we always say, if any of these videos help just one person, they're worth making. More videos coming soon.